Learning Allies College Success Program presents the following webinar: Student Safety on Campus, Off, and Everywhere in Between.
So to get us started, for Chris, what are some physical and mental preparations students can make to be safe, do you think?
Well, got a few things. Students can think about keeping at least one hand free wherever possible. There are strategies like using a backpack so that items can go into like a purse or books or bags or other things. Smaller bags can go into the backpack so that if one hand is on a cane or a dog, there's still one hand free to peel off the grasp of someone. Sometimes it could be just as simple as crossing a street. Someone's trying to assist you and you don't want their assistance, and you need that free hand to be able to kind of put a little bit of space between you and them while you communicate what way you would like to be helped. Thinking about the type of environment you'll be traveling in, and being able to plan appropriately. That includes everything from footwear, needs that you might have for food and snacks. You might be in a city environment, you might be in a rural environment. So starting to think about the types of travel places that you'll be in. And also thinking about where you are in terms of safety. If you're concerned about safety ahead of time, you may want to consider traveling with someone else. Thinking about how you will solicit help if you find it necessary. This might vary based on where you're traveling at. Again, if you're in a rural area or if you're in a very populated area, it could be anything from using your smartphone to sending your location or requesting help, or even having a whistle or just yelling loudly, but kind of planning ahead what strategies you'll use if you do find the need to solicit assistance. Thinking about your ability to remain oriented and strategies to reorient if you become disoriented. Some people are very good at using landmarks. Other people use adaptive compasses, different ways of reorienting yourself. But it's possible when we get startled or we get surprised by certain things, sometimes those areas of our routes that we're familiar with, they can kind of disappear from our immediate working memory. So having a way to reorient yourself is very helpful. And then enrolling in a basic self-defense course. There's some programs which I'm sure we're probably going to talk about today, but things like one-touch self-defense, or sometimes there's local self-defense programs that offer special classes for individuals who are blind or visually impaired.
Can I hate to interrupt you, but One Touch is no longer operational.
Oh, thank you, Amy. I appreciate that.
Not a problem.
I'm glad that you brought that up. I haven't been in touch with One Touch for quite a while, so I'm glad that you said that. There's also
comes in.
I'm glad. Thank you. There's also the possibility, I would encourage people to just reach out to local programs that do self-defense, because many times there will be, let's say, a judo area or another professional that practices martial arts or self-defense that is certainly willing to accommodate how they provide instruction, but they wouldn't know that unless you reached out. And I'll just wrap up there with that question. And thanks for jumping in, Amy.
You're welcome. Thanks
so much, Chris. That was a really, really helpful kind of oversight of what safety could look like in a couple of different forms. So that's terrific information. And we'll move right along to looking at safety in a different way. So I'm wondering if, Tabitha, you could tell us some ways that our students can protect themselves specifically online, and what safety looks like from that avenue.
I would say always being cognizant of the fact that once your information is online, it's stored somewhere and in some form. And so being realistic about the possibility that people are going to see it that you don't know. And so I'd recommend that people are careful with what they reveal and how much, personally identifying information that you put on places like Facebook or other social media platforms. For example, I know a lot of people will post that they're on vacation and other things, where I prefer not to do that, because I feel like it lets everyone know she's not home with anybody. Not that I assume that you know, people who are criminals or whatever are reading my posts, but I don't know. And so I'd advise that as far as caution online. Also, if you meet people online, this sort of, I guess, diverges from being offline in a way, but if you meet people, be sure to be in a public place, you know, follow good strategy planning, make sure that friends know that you're meeting someone and where, and honestly, that the person you're meeting, whether it's for dating or whatever, knows that people know that you're meeting someone. And to me, it would be a red flag if they weren't okay with that. But those are a couple of the strategies that I can think of, is just, you know, being cognizant of what you post and being careful if you do meet people.
Awesome. I think that's terrific. And I think, you know, especially now for everybody who's we're doing a lot from home still. So having an eye towards online safety, I think, is really, really important. So thank you for sharing that with us. Now we're thinking a little bit about sometimes things, despite our best efforts, can go wrong. And so students might find themselves in questionable situations. So for Amy, what can students do if they find themselves in a dangerous situation?
One of the, trying to find my wording, of course. When you're in a situation that you have decided is a dangerous situation for you to be in, you're going to want to either figure out where's your quickest exit and get out of there. Try to, if there's somebody that you can, that's like close to you, maybe you're at a group setting where there's a few of you and you're just not feeling comfortable, get out of there. And we call it the personal internal assessment, to where you're kind of mentally checking in with yourself. Are you physically okay? Are you mentally okay? And going from there. And if it's a situation that escalates, that you know, where bad things can happen, definitely contacting the police. If you're on a college campus, contacting them. I would recommend contacting both, just to make sure that everything's taken care of and aware of the situation that is going on, because you might get out of the situation, but there might be, you know, somebody else coming down the road that could end up in the same situation. So contacting proper authorities is extremely important in those situations.
Terrific. Thanks so much for that. We're going to jump back up to Chris, actually. So specifically for some of our students, you know, college might be the first time that they're traveling alone at night, or if they have low vision, that might be of specific concern to them. So what are some precautions that you suggest students might take to stay safe, specifically in the nighttime?
Enter full screen button.
Can you hear me?
Sorry, I had muted myself, Caitlin. Thank you.
Oh, no, that's okay.
Some of this will be repetition from what Amy and Tabitha have both shared. So hopefully the repetition will be helpful. But when traveling at night, you want to be sure that you are be aware that you're less obvious to vehicles, and try to travel in areas where lighting is available, such as street lights. Though it may not aid you personally in your travel, it will make you more obvious to vehicles, and it will also make it more difficult for people who are predators to hide. Wear clothing that is bright, or at least not all black or dark, as an option. If you choose to wear all dark, think about adding some layer that is light colored, such as a reflective vest, or possibly adding lights like the sporting lights that people use when they are running, or bicyclists. If you are wearing a clip light, you want to think about how you're using that clip light. Using a steady light option may provide you with greater safety. At least one study has been conducted that found that flashing lights had an increase in cars being drawn to the light with a flashing pattern of the light, such as drivers who were drowsy or inebriated. So if you're going to use an external light, try to have it in constant mode.
That's so interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Those are really helpful tips for everybody to remember. We're going to jump back to thinking about universities as a whole, as a campus setting. So for Tabitha, our resident disability services campus expert, can you describe services that most campuses have that students in general can use, but more specifically students with disabilities can use to help stay safe on the college campus?
I don't know of any services that are specific to students with disabilities, other than your disability resources office, which is a good place to find out about things like where there sometimes are emergency calling boxes, like where emergency phones are in places. They also can give you information about where you can find the plans on campus for storm shelters and those kinds of safety information. A lot of campuses will have a security shuttle that runs at night so that you don't have to walk in places, around campus if you're not comfortable. I know we have one here at Auburn that runs in the evenings, that runs on campus. So, just keeping those kinds of things in mind, knowing the emergency exits and buildings that you're at, commonly. Also, a lot of campuses have, I know Auburn does we have a counseling service, and then we also have something called Safe Harbor, which is geared toward people who have suffered, gone through sexual trauma or assault. And so those might be resources you'd need if you've encountered things that have not been safe, that a lot of college campuses have.
That's awesome. I think it's really great to hear about some of those kind of more overarching services. I know too, for me, when I was a college student, as someone who is blind and would travel independently around campus with my guide dog, I also took the phone number of the campus safety desk, and I had stored it in my cell phone in case I ever got lost at night or just felt uncomfortable. My school was very open that they could have a campus safety officer come and find you for any student and escort you back to your dorm if you were feeling uneasy.
Yeah, that's true.
So we're heading back up to Chris now. So we're wondering, what are some steps that students can take to stay safe, specifically in unfamiliar areas? And an example of that might be a big social gathering, a big party where you don't know anyone, or if you're going to travel somewhere new.
Some things to consider are keeping aware of your location. If you can ever arrive early to have a little bit of time to orient yourself, that would be very helpful to know where doors are, to know where certain gathering points are. Developing what you might call situational awareness, understanding what's happening around you, letting others know what is happening with you, as has already been mentioned, letting people know where you're going, when you plan to be back. Basically, no one can miss you if you haven't let them know where you're headed. And so you want to be missed if you're not back when you expect to be. Have people who you regularly check in with, so that if they don't hear from you, if they're used to hearing from you once a day and they don't hear from you, they'll start to wonder. Develop your skills to be able to travel to safe places. We've already talked about some places that might be safe, but just practicing getting there independently. Many times we're traveling with friends just because it's fun and it's convenient, but it's also important to be able to do those things independently, and knowing where those safe places are, whether it's a public safety office, it could be in the entrance to a dormitory where the desk is, all sorts of places to check in at. And keep ways of communicating with you. Have your phone with you. And I don't know anybody that's really using a pager anymore, but some way of communicating with people so that if you need to do that, you can.
Awesome, thank you. I know for some of my students too, if they're going out to a party or a place that they may have never been before, some of them also choose to, on an iPhone, and there's an equivalency on the Android as well, share their location with a family member or a friend. So this way they can be tracked if necessary, exactly where they're going to be, and if they've reached their destination or not as well.
Very helpful. Yes. Thank you, Caitlin.
So our last question goes to Amy, actually, and that is particularly, we're talking about things we can do to keep ourselves safe and stay safe. But if there is a dangerous situation, what supports exist that people might be able to access after that dangerous situation?
There is a wide variety of resources out there depending on what type of situation that you have encountered. There is, well, one, obviously you'd want to connect with your local police resources. They're going to know specifically in your area what type of services that you may be able to use that could be beneficial. And then in terms of really looking at that, personal internal assessment and evaluating, physically, am I okay? What do I need to do with that? But there's also the mental aspect that, if you could physically be okay, but mentally not okay. So I would suggest for seeking out counseling services. Oftentimes, college students can receive free counseling, and you could use that as a resource. There's different support groups out there that you could participate in. But those would be some of my top ones. Also, after an event like that or an experience like that, not only just checking in with yourself after it's exactly happened, but even checking in again with yourself after a couple of days, especially with the physical aspect. Your adrenaline can be going so high. You've had this experience and when you take a day or two to really calm down, you could, be like, oh, where'd that bruise come from type of thing. So making sure that you're physically healthy, mentally healthy, and then following those proper channels of resources would be my biggest suggestions.
Terrific, thank you. So we have just 2 more questions left, and these are sort of for all of you. It's kind of, I'll do it as a part 1, part 2. So if we're thinking about everything, all the great information you guys have shared today, what would you say your top piece of advice about safety is? And what is the one thing you would want a student to remember about this webinar? And whoever would like to start, by all means.
Well, I'll go ahead and jump in. Practice using your distance sense to be aware of what is around you and what options you have. This may be vision for those that are low vision, or it may be hearing for those who are ultra low vision or non-visual. For those who are deafblind, using your understanding of the environment to make reasonable assumptions about where possible exits are, other people to solicit aid from if necessary.
I was always taught that looking confident is part of staying safe, because if you don't look like a victim, you're less likely to be picked on. And so I suggest knowing the area. And then also, and this might seem obvious for someone who's blind, but I don't recommend wandering around with, earbuds and listening to music, even if you know where you're going, because then it dulls your sense of hearing to what else could be around you going on.
My number one suggestion would be, if you feel that you are lacking in a certain skill set, I cannot stress enough the importance of finding, educating yourself, whether it's understanding how, consent and boundaries work, or, if you're nervous about getting back and forth from class, practicing your O&M skills, but educating yourself and practicing, I think, would be like my top two suggestions.
Fantastic.
I think my biggest one would be like, as far as the takeaways from this would be, there are resources out there in terms of safety and self-defense. As Chris said, One Touch was a thing. It is no longer. There's a SEED program, and it focuses on safety education and self-defense, but finding your finding the resources that are gonna best help you, and then you've heard, in just the short time we've given out lots of different information for you, but just take one and run with it. And if that doesn't work, try another one. Just keep trying.
And Amy, if students wanted to learn more, get involved with SEED, is there a website or something in particular they should do to learn more about, self-defense for people with disabilities?
Absolutely. We have a website. It is called Strive for You. It is the number 4, striveforyou.org. There is information about the SEED program, other programs within the Strive family. There is, if you want to volunteer, we're working on creating safety education courses and curriculum for individuals to be able to access online and in person. The self-defense stuff that is coming very shortly. And if you're interested in having your college campus host a class, we'd love to talk to you. We're just now starting to look at dates in the fall, but that's my favorite population to teach is students, because I know it's going to be something with them that stays for life, type of thing. So.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you.
And
all.
if you
This
like,
was...
and if you guys like writing, please volunteer. Need writers. I'm not a writer. I'm a talker.
Thank you guys so much. This was awesome. This is really, really great information for everybody to have.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.